We are out of space to hold them, and we have no way to promptly return them back home to their country. America proudly welcomes millions of lawful immigrants who enrich our society and contribute to our nation. But all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration. It strains public resources and drives down jobs and wages. Among those hardest hit are African Americans and Hispanic Americans. Our southern border is a pipeline for vast quantities of illegal drugs, including meth, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl. Every week, 300 of our citizens are killed by heroin alone, 90% of which floods across from our southern border. More Americans will die from drugs this year than were killed in the entire Vietnam War. In the last 2 years, ICE officers made 266,000 arrests of aliens with criminal records, including those charged or convicted of 100,000 assaults, 30,000 sex crimes, and 4,000 violent killings. Over the years, thousands of Americans have been brutally killed by those who illegally entered our country, and thousands more lives will be lost if we don't act right now. This is a humanitarian crisis, a crisis of the heart, and a crisis of the soul. Last month, 20,000 migrant children were illegally brought into the United States, a dramatic increase. These children are used as human pawns by vicious coyotes and ruthless gangs. 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted on the dangerous trek up through Mexico. Women or children are the biggest victims, by far, of our broken system. This is the tragic reality of illegal immigration on our southern border. This is the cycle of human suffering that I am determined to end. My administration has presented Congress with a detailed proposal to secure the border and stop the criminal gangs, drug smugglers, and human traffickers. It's a tremendous problem. Our proposal was developed by law enforcement professionals and border agents at the Department of Homeland Security. These are the resources they have requested to properly perform their mission and keep America safe. In fact, safer than ever before. The proposal from Homeland Security includes cutting-edge technology for detecting drugs, weapons, illegal contraband, and many other things. We have requested more agents, immigration judges, and bed space to process the sharp rise in unlawful migration fueled by our very strong economy. Our plan also contains an urgent request for humanitarian assistance and medical support. Furthermore, we have asked
Trump
Congress
looks so
to
awkward and
close border
stupid
security
reading
loopholes.
out this
Children
teleprompter.
safely and
So uncomfortable.
returned back home.
Doesn't he look uncomfortable?
Finally, as part of an overall approach,
You know, I decided that every time he tell a lie, I'm going to put 25 cents into my piggy bank.
$5.7 billion for a physical barrier. At the request of Democrats, it will be a steel barrier rather than a concrete wall. This barrier is absolutely critical to border security. It's also what our professionals at the border want and need. This is just common sense. The border wall would very quickly pay for itself. The cost of illegal drugs exceeds $500 billion a year, vastly more than...
Whatever happened to Mexico was going to pay for the wall? Whatever happened to that? That idea of Mexico paying for the wall? Who knows?
Trade deal we have made with Mexico. Senator Chuck Schumer, who you will be hearing from later tonight, has repeatedly supported a physical barrier in the past, along with many other Democrats. They changed their mind only after I was elected president. Democrats in Congress have refused to acknowledge the crisis, and they have refused to provide our brave border agents with the tools they desperately need to protect our families and our nation. The federal government remains shut down for one reason, and one reason only.
What is it?
Because Democrats will not fund border security.
Come
My
on.
administration is doing everything in our power to help those impacted by the situation. But the only solution is for Democrats to pass a spending bill that defends our borders and reopens the government. This situation could be solved in a 45-minute meeting. I have invited congressional leadership to the White House tomorrow to get this done. Hopefully, we can rise above partisan politics in order to support national security. Some have suggested a barrier is immoral. Then why do wealthy politicians build walls, fences, and gates around their homes? They don't build walls because they hate the people on the outside, but because they love the people on the inside. The only thing that is immoral is the politicians to do nothing and continue to allow more innocent people to be so horribly victimized. America's heart broke the day after Christmas when a young police officer in California was savagely murdered in cold blood by an illegal alien who just came across the border. The life of an American hero was stolen by someone who had no right to be in our country. Day after day, precious lives are cut short by those who have violated our borders. In California, an Air Force veteran was raped, murdered, and beaten to death with a hammer by an illegal alien with a long criminal history. In Georgia, an illegal alien was recently charged with murder for killing, beheading, and dismembering his neighbor. In Maryland, MS-13 gang members who arrived in the United States as unaccompanied minors were arrested and charged last year after viciously stabbing and beating a 16-year-old girl. Over the last several years, I've met with dozens of families whose loved ones were stolen by illegal immigration. I've held the hands of the weeping mothers and embraced the grief-stricken fathers. So sad, so terrible. I will never forget the pain in their eyes, the tremble in their voices, and the sadness gripping their souls. How much more American blood must we shed before Congress does its job? To those who refuse to compromise in the name of border security, I would ask, imagine if it was your child, your husband, or your wife whose life was so cruelly shattered and totally broken. To every member of Congress, pass a bill that ends this crisis. To every citizen, call Congress and tell them to finally, after all of these decades, secure our border. This is a choice between right and wrong, justice and injustice. This is about whether we fulfill our sacred duty to the American citizens we serve. When I took the oath of office, I swore to protect our country, and that is what I will always do. So help me God. Thank you and good night.
All right, there you have it. There's President Donald Trump first.
Guys, this was supposed to be some kind of address to the nation to discuss matters of urgency, matters that is certainly affecting the United States and the world. This is an Oval Office type of setting, like when Ronald Reagan was probably invading or getting ready to send troops to Grenada in 1983, And those big occasions, those mighty big occasions when something big is going down, that the whole nation, networks, and everybody have to be looking on, because there is something that is big that needs to be discussed. So that's what this is hyped up to be. And I listened, I watched it, and I decided to bring it, and I decided to give a live reaction to it, because I'm thinking that there is something that of substance, that has so much of magnitude, that everybody should pay attention to. All right? And I might be kind of one-sided in saying what I'm about to say, but this particular comments or address to the world nation, to me, made absolutely no sense. I don't know what is the justification for calling everyone's attention to hear him ramble on about the same thing that he been rambling on for since his administration started. So I don't understand. Again, this is a live reaction, right? So this is a live reaction. Let me hear what the correspondents and the reporters are saying.
Them, but said powerful,
People who build walls and gates outside their homes, why do they do it?
Yes, the Obamas, of course, still have significant Secret Service protection. They do have some fencing, as their neighbors do. They do not have a giant wall around their house or compound, as Trump calls it. He also referred to children being brought over the border by nefarious people who are supposedly smuggling them in. He has never presented any good data for how common that is. The data we've seen suggests that is uncommon.
So guys, as I said, I just gave my immediate live reaction to it, right? And it's kind of the same thing that everybody else is already saying as well, that this whole hype of creating a state of emergency make no sense, because there is no emergency. We're still yet to understand what the emergency is. Now, one of the things that a lot of Trump supporters, and not only Trump supporters, some of the folks in Trump land, in Trump head, in Trump administration, they're trying to build a case that most of the drugs and illegal aliens and undocumented people come through and will come through that southern border, Mexico bordered the United States. When if they just pay some quick little attention to what's really happening, that is not the case at all. Most times, I'm not saying that is not the case, but in most instances, what's happening is a lot of people are flying into the United States, and then they decide to stay. Then they decide not to return back home. They don't need to go over walls to come here. In fact, a lot of them places, like people from, and you would not even imagine who are some of the highest level of undocumented immigrants here in the United States. A lot of them don't come from Mexico. A lot of them don't come from the Caribbean. They need to check the documents. I want you guys to do this. Check the documents and see who is the largest group of undocumented immigrants here in the United States. These people fly here by plane. So Donald Trump, okay, let me listen to the Democrats.
The fact is, we all agree we need to secure our borders while honoring our values. We can build the infrastructure and roads at our ports of entry. We can install new technology to scan cars and trucks for drugs coming into our nation. We can hire the personnel we need to facilitate trade and immigration at the border. We can fund more innovation to detect unauthorized crossings. The fact is, the women and children at the border are not a security threat. They are a humanitarian challenge, a challenge that President Trump's own cruel and counterproductive policies have only deepened. And the fact is, President Trump must stop holding the American people hostage, must stop manufacturing a crisis, and must reopen the government. Thank you. Leader Schumer.
Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. My fellow Americans, we address you tonight for one reason only. The President of the United States having failed to get Mexico to pay for his ineffective, unnecessary border wall, and unable to convince the Congress or the American people to foot the bill, has shut down the government. American democracy doesn't work that way. We don't govern by temper tantrum. No president should pound the table and demand he gets his way, or else the government shuts down, hurting millions of Americans who are treated as leverage. Tonight, and throughout this debate and throughout his presidency, President Trump has appealed to fear, not facts, division, not unity. Make no mistake, Democrats and the president both want stronger border security. However, we sharply disagree with the president about the most effective way to do it. So, how do we untangle this mess? Well, there's an obvious solution. Separate the shutdown from arguments over border security. There is bipartisan legislation supported by Democrats and Republicans to reopen government while allowing debate over border security to continue. There is no excuse for hurting millions of Americans over a policy difference. Federal workers are about to miss a paycheck. Some families can't get a mortgage to buy a new home. Farmers and small businesses won't get loans they desperately need. Most presidents have used Oval Office addresses for noble purposes. This president just used the backdrop of the Oval Office to manufacture a crisis, stoke fear, and divert attention from the turmoil in his administration. My fellow Americans, there is no challenge so great that our nation cannot rise to meet it. We can reopen the government and continue to work through disagreements over policy. We can secure our border without an ineffective, expensive wall. And we can welcome legal immigrants and refugees without compromising safety and security. The symbol of America should be the Statue of Liberty, not a 30-foot wall. So our suggestion is a simple one. Mr. President, reopen the government and we can work to resolve our differences over border security, but end this shutdown now. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. There are the arguments from both sides.
Whoa. Believe it or not, guys, that is the issue why the United States government is shut down. Because you have the Democrats who are saying, oh, first you have the Republicans, and the Senate has to be blamed as well. You have a Republican president with a Republican Senate who is saying they need $5.7 billion, a total number that could probably feed a Caribbean nation for about 15 years, right? You have a Republican president and a Republican Senate who is saying they need this money to build a wall. And a Democrat House of Representatives right now that's saying you ain't getting shit. You ain't getting nothing. You're not getting $5.7 million. Wasted money. Trump want his money. The Democrats said that he ain't getting a goddamn dime. So because of that, the appropriation bills that's supposed to be signed, or the monies, is not being paid out to those hard-working federal workers, people who are working right now, essential workers, people that check your bags at the airport, federal workers, and federal services like food stamps, FHA loan, all of this stuff are not in operation. If you're trying to get a mortgage right now through FHA, it's not going through. People are literally dying because of this, because even medications and all of that stuff, trial research and all this stuff, all of that is controlled by the federal government. Believe it or not, because of Trump kicking up a tantrum, all of these people are not getting paid right now because of his immature tantrum. He's like a little kid. Trump is like a little child. You know, like a little child who wants something, who asks, oh, give me my car, give me my speed car. No, you're not getting your speed car. And throw everybody's speed car away. Trump is like an immature little child. That's what the American president is. Sorry to say for everyone who support the president, and if you support the president, you probably have a valid reason to support the president, but to my analysis of this whole thing, the president of the United States is like a little child. And that is what's happening right now. A temper tantrum where inconveniencing millions of people over a situation that makes absolutely zero sense. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. The fact is, drugs, the majority of drugs, illegal immigrants, and the hype up notion that terrorists is coming through the southern borders is not true. It is false. And it was debunked by almost all journalists that looked at this. Even the Homeland Security issued reports that said that most over the thousands of terrorists that they're talking about, aliens of interest and all these other people, that's people that's coming through 90% of the time coming through airports into the United States. The same airports that right now, the people who are supposed to be searching your bags, they're not getting paid. And because of that, they're staying home. They don't want to go to work. They're taking vacation because they're not getting paid. They can't pay their transportation to go to work because some of them are living from paycheck to paycheck. So there are less people checking your bags at the airport, and that is where the problem is right now. It's not about the wall. The wall is not going to solve the problem. The wall has never the idea of the wall was only and primarily, and everyone knows it, based on Trump's ego and his dislike for Mexicans and immigrants in general. That's it. He don't like Mexicans. He don't like immigrants. Think about the first time Trump came down that escalator at the Trump Tower, and the first thing that he said is Mexicans are rapists. He laid out all sorts of stuff that he felt about Mexicans. It was since then, everybody know that Trump don't like Mexicans. Everybody know Trump don't like immigrants. Everyone knows it. It's not a trick question about it. Donald Trump do not like immigrants. And that is a fact. Donald Trump do not like immigrants. So all I'm talking about African American and African American employment and we're doing, African Americans are doing better than they did under Obama and all this crap, that's exactly what it is. Let me hear what some of the reporters are saying.
Years in. He keeps snatching defeat or gridlock from the jaws of victory in the sense that he has every right. He won an election on immigration. Democrats were going to give it to him for DACA.
Right.
There are other ways for him to get much of what he wants, but he won't take it. He walked away from the DACA deal. Now he has, after losing an election, the Democrats now have the House. Right. And he's asking for more than he was asking when the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate. That's contrarian. Now, he's always contrarian. There may be a rabbit out of the hat. He has surprised us before. But it does not fit. If you're looking at this new environment where Nancy Pelosi is Speaker, she's not going to give him $6 billion for his wall. Would she take? If Chuck Schumer said, we're going to cut a deal, you got to give him 2.5 or 3, I don't even know that she would take that to the House Democrats, but that would put pressure on her. If the White House would do a conventional deal and say, give us the money for the beds. Give us the money for border. The president is in a strong place on border security.
Until the shutdown.
He's in a weak place on the wall.
Until the shutdown, because where he had the Democrats, as Gloria pointed out, who's not going to give them money for more X-ray detections so that we can stop drugs coming across the border, medical professionals and transportation, so God forbid we find other kids and extremists like the 2 who passed away recently. Maybe they'd have a shot with better resources, maybe not. Those are tough for the Democrats to step aside. But the shutdown has now given them an opportunity to say, reopen the government, then we'll talk. The question is...
Listen, the truth and the fact about it is, the Democrats at this point have the upper hand. And if you realize Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, they're talking with authority. Because they have the authority, they have the upper hand right now. Those Democrats in the House of Representatives they control the majority and they have the upper hand on Trump at the moment, right? No, in order, Trump could bypass the House of Representatives. He could bypass them and get the allocated monies, the $5.7 billion he needs to build the wall. That's why he's trying to cultivate some kind of emergency. So if you call a state of emergency, it means that there is a major problem that is happening right now. So in order to deal with that problem, I am going to take it upon myself, which he does have the legal right as president to call a state of emergency. So that money is that $5.706 billion. You know where this money is coming from? This $5.7 billion is actually coming from emergency funds. Emergency funds is basically funds that's allocated in case of like a hurricane, a storm. And the monies that allocated to military or other people in emergency situation. So he's gonna tap into that fund, take that money in order to satisfy his ego. Now, if he does decide to do that, the Democrats now could take it all the way to court and ask the question, where is the emergency? So what Trump is trying to do right now, he is trying to make people, he's trying to sell the idea that there is in fact an emergency when there is no emergency here. The emergency is that the people at DHS, the people who's checking your bags, and other essential workers are not getting paid. That is the emergency. Otherwise, there's no other emergency. The other emergency here in the United States is that, and it's simple. The emergency is there is a crazy president and needs to get out as quick as possible. That's an emergency. If he continue with his senseless, crazy act, I'm not sure what 2 years from now would look like. It is crazy, it's absurd, it is madness. Again, guys, there is no emergency at the southern border. Yes, it is true that there should be some form of the border should be protected, border agents, whatever is necessary. But building a wall 30 feet high that costs over 20 something billion dollars, which could be easy, send probably every single student to college for free for umpteen years, 20 something billion dollars. He wants to take that money and put it towards building a senseless wall. So say for instance, yes, the wall get built. He does call a state of emergency. It goes to the courts. There is a battle for it, whatever. The wall get built. Guys, it is simple. If the Mexicans or drug cartels still wants to let me go there. Before I say that, that's not going to stop drugs from flowing from Central America to the United States. They have drones that fly over walls. They have caves that they dig under walls. There's all these other things. So that's not going to stop the drug trafficking that comes into the United States. Listen, this whole thing is it is brainless to think that a president would actually maintain and continue such a senseless and stupid conversation. And you know who's more dumb than Trump? Sorry to say, but the senators who are following this crazy man, they know better. They know better. The Senate Majority Leader, he knows better. They know better. But they're scared of Trump. They're scared to stand up to Trump, because if they stand up to Trump, he might tweet about them. And they're scared of that. So, and they want to keep their job. They want to keep their job. So Trump might rail against them. And they're scared that they lose their job. Listen, There's nothing scarier. There's nothing more crazy than following a madman. A madman is going to take you to waters and lakes while he drowning himself, and you watch him drown himself, and you look and see the pain and destruction that he caused drowning himself, and you yourself go and do the same thing. That is what's happening right now. The Senate, who is Republicans, are following a madman. Trump is a madman. Sorry to say, Trump is a crazy man. He is crazy. Guys, listen. I want you guys to subscribe to this channel. From this point on, I'm going to pay some special attention to what's happening in the field of politics here in the United States, because it affects every single immigrant right here. It affects our life. It affects how we live here in the United States. So keep subscribe to this channel. We're gonna keep an eye on what's happening from now until hopefully the shutdown ends pretty soon, but going forward. Subscribe to this channel, press the notification, also comment and share and tell me what you think about the madness, the craziness that's happening right now in the United States. Catch you guys another time.
Ride Along Live.
Welcome to the ride. Welcome to the ride. Start the clock. It's happening now.
Everyone has a story to tell.
Get ready for the ride of your life. Share the program, share the team.